All right, let's get this started. Thanks everybody for joining. My name is Blake Clark. I am the GVP, the Group Vice President for Software Advice. Welcome to our interview series, Reimagining Your Business. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to Dux Raymond Sy. Dux, you are a jack of all trades. You are the host of the ShiftHappens Podcast, the CMO of Avepoint. We're live. So we are doing this live. I'm coming to you from Austin. Dux is coming to you from Washington, D.C. We are socially distanced, but virtually close, and excited to talk to you today. We're going to be answering your questions at the end of the interview. So please be sure there should be a little button at the bottom of your screen to submit a question. Be sure to submit some really hard questions that I will put to Dux and make him answer. So let's get those submitted. Dux, you've been a CTO, you have been a CMO, you are a podcast host, you do it all. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background and your story.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much, Blake, for having me. And I'm grateful for everybody who's joining us today. And boy, it's been an amazing ride. I know the last 6 months has been really difficult for a lot of us, but I think about my journey being able to have the opportunity to do a lot of different things. So certainly my career started as a developer. I was a programmer. I worked in a little company called Siemens way back when. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that. And I realized while I love technology, I love coding, but my true passion is engaging with people, being out there, solving problems for customers. So with that, after being a developer, I started my own business as a consultant. And then it was during that time, as really a small business, 2-3 of us started thinking about, okay, our technical skills aren't enough. How do we sell? How do we market? How do we promote ourselves? Right. And then shortly, maybe 10, 12 years later, I progressed to my next career. I'm now with Avepoint. I serve as a CMO of Avepoint. We're a software company that helps organizations around the world make sure that their data in the Microsoft cloud is secure and well protected. It's been an amazing journey, and I'm just so grateful for all these opportunities and always looking forward to share some of the learnings I have with friends and colleagues out there.
Yeah, that's great. And I wanted to ask you about something. I saw a video that you put out a while back, Dux, and it was like a day in the life of you. And you said in there that you get up every day at, I don't remember if it was 4 a.m. or 4:30. And I wanted to check because especially since quarantine has started, man, I sleep in. I got to fix that. Do you still do that? Are you up every day, 4 a.m.?
So let me clarify. That video was maybe 3 years old now, and I'm a little slacking now. I now wake up at 5:30, maybe 30 minutes. But it's been a habit of mine since I was young. I find that I can get a lot of focus time done first thing in the morning, and I put my run in. I just feel a lot of sense of accomplishment, like between that time and 8 o'clock, I've knocked out a lot of stuff.
All right, you're going to inspire me. So tomorrow morning, 5 a.m., I'm up and at 'em. All right, I want to talk to you a little bit about your podcast. So you started that this year, Shift Happens. Got to be really careful how you say that. Tell me a little bit about it and why did you create it?
Sure. So being in the tech industry, there's a lot of resources out there, a lot of podcasts out there. And oftentimes the feedback I get from the customers I work with is a lot of these podcasts are great, but they're very technology oriented. Like what's new feature, what's new capabilities. What we want to learn more about is how did others do it? What are some of the practical tips? What worked, what didn't work? And especially in the last 2 years, we're moving towards this amazing technological shift, regardless if you're a small organization or a big organization. So with that idea, that inspired me to say, you know what, that's true. So I went out there and looked for stories that everybody can relate to and hear out what organizations have done to move through this shift and make it work for them. So for example, I had an episode, our first episode was with Heathrow Airport, and the person I interviewed, Samit Saini, he was a security guard essentially, or airport security at Heathrow for 12 years. No tech background. Think of like TSA pre type of stuff. And then he had a challenge. He's like, we got to carry around these books because some of the passengers don't understand English, so we got to figure out and tell them, put your cell phones on the conveyor belt, what have you. And he's like, maybe there's an app for this. So he asked IT to help him, and IT's like, I'm too busy. So he figured it out himself. So he built an app where now every security person at Heathrow Airport can just show in a different language to passengers. So we're getting stories like that. And this is amazing because this person has no tech background, and the app he built didn't require him to code, and just shows you the power of technology on how not only can help organizations shift and be better, but impacted Summit. So Summit now works in IT for Heathrow Airport.
Yeah, I love that example. The podcast is great. I've checked out a few episodes. I've really thought about just that word shift. I think it's a great title for your podcast. And it resonates with me based off of the discussions I've had with a lot of small and mid-sized businesses. Shift is really the kind of word of the day, especially post-COVID, as these small businesses have had to just rapidly reinvent on the fly. And technology is playing such a big part of those transformations and of those shifts. And it's not easy. We at Software Advice, we talk to a lot of small businesses. It's not easy to make that kind of a shift. You understand what that's like and what it takes to digitally transform your business. You've been on the CTO side. You're currently a CMO. And from your view, why is it so important for businesses to embrace digital and do it and go quickly?
I mean, look, today, in my opinion, every company is a technology company, regardless of what industry your business is in.
That's a good point.
To your point, during this pandemic, right, especially in the early days of lockdown, how did we interface with the outside world? We would buy online through our phone, through an app. We would order food. We would order a ride through our phone. So if you think about it, like traditionally, so for example, traditionally, you wouldn't think like a restaurant would have to do anything with technology. I guess the most technology they'll have is maybe have a website, their menu, or maybe within the store have some payment processing system. But that has drastically changed. But here's the good news. A lot of us think that, it's not for me. We're a small company. We don't have money, or we don't have the skills. I don't have programming skills. Technology has become the great equalizer and the great enabler, because there's so much resources out there that a lot of them, frankly, are free, that we can take advantage of, not only to survive during this time, but frankly, to thrive as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I wanted to follow up with that. You made that point that there's a lot of free resources out there. In your view, if you're a small business or mid-sized business, does it have to cost a lot of money to make really meaningful digital improvements?
The answer is no. So let me kind of share two stories with everybody, and I think this will resonate a lot with a lot of different small businesses. So the first story, I want to do a throwback here, back in the mid-90s. And at that time, technology wasn't as prevalent, and we didn't have as many tools as we have today. So there's a little wine shop in New Jersey, and it's a family-owned business. They're doing okay, and the son tried to figure out how can they help grow their family business, because it's okay, but sometimes it's challenging, especially with these big stores opening up. So the son, not technical, came across this website called YouTube at that time. It was new, and he's like, you know what I'm going to do? Every day, I'm just going to post a video of me sampling wine and tell people how good or how bad, what the wine would go with. Short videos, 10, 15 minutes. And he did this every day. And guess what? Not only did he started to gain following, people were starting asking him on video, can I buy this wine from you? And then he's like, wow, this is an opportunity. And then from this mom and pop wine store, then he enabled online commerce. At that time, obviously, he had to pay some money to get all the pieces in place. And then suddenly they have a new channel to sell. So in that one example alone, and this person I'm describing, his name is Gary Vaynerchuk. He's now really big in digital marketing. I'm sure some of you know him. But that's how he started. He just took advantage of a tool out there and became creative on how to use to market the technology. And one key thing that he did, He wasn't a used car salesman. He wasn't like, buy my wine, buy my wine. He's more of a thought leader saying, hey, this wine's good with burger. This one not so good. Because in the end, people want to buy. They don't want to be sold to. And fast forward to today, we have tons of technologies and channel that allows for you to do that, which leads to my second story. We talked about during this pandemic. Again, it's just sad to see a lot of businesses are impacted. I know of a small restaurant in the local community I read about where during the pandemic, their business went down almost to nothing. Then it's a family-owned business. Then the kids, they're like, maybe we should do this. The first thing they did, they essentially created a Facebook group and announced to the local community, hey, I know pandemic is hard. Everybody's at home. Cooking may be a challenge. We're going to offer a subscription-based model where you can pick a plan, I don't know, $50 a week or $10 a week, and then we'll deliver so much food to you. So they did that. And then that whole model grew where traditionally they were just sitting there and waiting for people to order food or come to the restaurant, but now people aren't coming. So they went out there and say, hey, we'll deliver food to you at this price. And then they didn't stop there. They said, okay, what else can we do to promote erselves? They started have daily, I think at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, Instagram Live teaching people how to cook. They didn't have to do anything different because I think the dad was a chef. They're cooking anyways. So today we're going to cook pasta, and this is what you do. So as the dad is cooking, I think one of the kids were narrating, so people would tune in to learn how to cook. But you talk about stickiness and nurturing your customers, right? And all these tools they use are free. Facebook group, Instagram Live. And last I checked, apparently, sure, their sales were down March, April, but May picked back up, and I think their business is doing better now, even prior to COVID. So you just have to be creative and take advantage of these tools. And as you grow, sure, you can invest in other technologies to expand further.
I think those are both just fascinating examples to me. And the title of the interview series is Reimagining Your Business. That's what I was thinking about. Like in that, I think a lot of it is actually thinking, what is my business? So on the first example, you could say, well, in one sense, my business is I'm a wine store. I sell wine. But I think Gary Vee said, like, actually, my product, my business is the knowledge. It's all of that we bring to help you choose a good wine. We can deliver that in a lot of different ways. We can deliver that digitally. We can deliver that through email and social media. And at the end of the day, we're going to sell more wine. The restaurant is a fascinating one. We know restaurants have been severely impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. But in that example, it's like, hey, is my product food? I put food on a table in a restaurant, someone pays, or is it actually, it's an experience they come to this restaurant for, food is part of that, but I can deliver that experience in a different way and survive and even thrive during a pandemic. So I think those are really good examples. I wanted to ask you, as you think about how to digitize fast, walk us through the steps to do that. So restaurant's a good example. If you were a restaurant, like how would you do that quickly?
Sure. Let's carry through that example because that's a really good example. So I would share 6 steps to everybody, right? First step is, first and foremost, you got to figure out how you draw customers in. And today, the good news is there's multiple channels that you can take advantage of online. Hit them all. Websites, social media, search engines, online marketplaces. So if you're a restaurant, make sure you have a Facebook page, make sure you're on Instagram, make sure you're on TikTok. You're like, wait a minute, we don't do dancing videos. No, do little recipes or cooking stuff on TikTok. And then now you have Instagram Reel as well. And that is key. You got to meet your customers where they're at. Make sure you're on Yelp. Make sure if you're selling something, make sure you're on Amazon, create a marketplace there, be on eBay, and take advantage of these different platforms where customers are at. And I love what you mentioned, Blake, because traditionally, if I'm a restaurant, for example, people come to me. The game has changed. You go to where they're at, especially today where we can't travel freely or we can't go out freely. The second step is you want to make sure you make the engagement experience seamless and easy. Make it easy for people to order stuff. Enable Apple Pay. If you have Venmo or make sure you have Venmo and PayPal, you take those type of transaction. Provide delivery service. If you're thinking, well, I don't want to hire a driver or buy a car, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Use DoorDash, use Uber Eats or those type of mechanism. Step 3 is provide excellent customer service. And this is what people appreciate. Frankly, even for myself, sure, sometimes when I buy stuff, I look at price. But now I realize if it's not that much of a difference, I value the customer experience more.
Right.
So how do you do that? You just follow up. If people complain, especially if it's valid, respond, say, thank you for bringing this up. We'll do better. Respond to them on social media, on Yelp, even maybe give them a credit or some coupon for next one, but excellent customer service is critical. Number 4, nurture customers and upsell. Like I shared earlier, do some kind of free lunch and learn or Instagram live or some kind of a Facebook live session. And the key is you have to do it consistently and make sure it's unique. Don't do what everybody else is doing. So for example, I live in the software world and I engage with a lot of companies, and we use TikTok because that's different. Right. Because our competitors, when they do an interview, they're in a conference room doing the regular interviews. We do our interviews on TikTok or in a helicopter. Make it stand out that others can't compete with you. Step 5 is make sure you partner and collaborate with others, if possible, known brands. At the end of the day, the pie is so big that you can collaborate with other people. Do joint events, and you're seeing with a lot of celebrities doing this, where they have, on Instagram, I know a lot of singers are coming on together and they're battling singing. It's good fun, but then you start seeing their advertising drinks or advertising clothing. So collaborate with a lot of these people that are much more known than you are. Last step is constantly learn. Always be learning and seek advice from experts like software advice from Blake and his colleagues, because as we all know, technology is changing so fast. Yeah. So having experts help us instead of us trying to figure out every single time is worth it, because as we know, time is of essence.
Yeah, I mean, there it is, like a 6-step plan that's solid. I know from discussions I've had with small businesses, like there can just be this sense of fear about embracing digital. I think because it's unknown, it may not come naturally. But I think what you outlined there is easy to understand, and you don't have to have tons of money to do it. It's really about mindset. And the other thing that I've noticed from discussions I've had, most businesses that have been around for any length of time, they develop a core set of customers. There's people who love that business. They want to see it thrive. They want to see it succeed. So they're actually very eager to help you, to help a small business. they're kind of waiting on you. And I love that point you made about, it's not about customers going to the business, but the business going to the customer. So I think it's a great point. And it makes me think with some businesses that may not be as digitally forward as others, what are some of the kind of obstacles you would foresee in digitizing, and how could these businesses mitigate those challenges of kind of embracing technology and transforming?
That's a fantastic question. Where true, there's so much technology, the barrier to entry is much lower, but at the same time, there's frankly a lot of risk. I mean, we hear this day in, day out. Some company got hacked or some information was stolen. So some of the key challenges, right, is unsecure technology platform. So for example, a lot of us use Zoom. Zoom is great, don't get me wrong, but they're still working out some of their core capabilities around making it much more secure. The other issue is around data silos. Sometimes, and it's natural as you evolve and take advantage of technology, okay, I'm going to use Instagram for this, Facebook for that, Uber Eats for this. But then suddenly you have all these different silos where information is kept. So let's say I engage with Blake on Instagram, but Blake orders something on Uber Eats. Those two information are disconnected. Wouldn't it be great that as soon as Blake orders something on Uber Eats, I'll hit him up on Instagram. Thank you, Blake. Right? So those are some of the challenges I see now, where there's all these data silos and disconnected information. The third thing is a lot of these short-term solutions don't scale. While there are technologies that are free that are good, but always have that mindset that when you get to that point with either you have the resources or you're much bigger, invest a more scalable resource, which oftentimes would require you to pay for it. And to mitigate all this, right? So certainly I'm not scaring you here, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to figure out yourself. Again, I say look at experts, seek guidance from organizations like Software Advice or even experts in your industry, be it in the restaurant industry or be it in whatever industry you're in.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. And I think it's so much of it, the more I hear you talk, Dux, it's like you just need to be doing. Like, don't be afraid to take that first step. It's not necessarily a ton of risk because it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You can kind of test and learn your way into it, but be doing it, be active and figuring it out. Quick reminder, I do want to put a plug in questions. So if you do have questions, please submit them. Dux and I will get to those momentarily. Dux, I wanted to ask you, you've started adopting a term called virtual closeness. So I wanted to ask you about that. Most of us are working from home. Social distancing is a thing. I've got 5 kids. They're like in the other rooms of this house in school right now. You've started to talk more about this idea of virtual closeness. Tell us a little bit about it. How can a business use virtual closeness to create those meaningful relationships with their customers?
Absolutely. When this whole pandemic started, just like you, I enjoy the company of people. Technology is great, but frankly, I prefer face-to-face interaction. So when this whole pandemic started and the term social distancing became lingua franca or became, the term that we hear day in, day out, it kind of made me sad. I'm like, I don't want to be like this for a long time. Yeah. But then what I also realized as a result of this pandemic, I actually talk more to people. I've called friends that I haven't called in a long time. I spend more time with people while not physically, virtually. I'm like, you know what? Let's look at it the other way. Sure, we have to be socially distanced, but what it did, it pushed us to be more virtually close. And as I think about that, especially for businesses, right? The key is you got to mimic real life experiences. And as human beings, we want to be close. We want to engage. So for example, if you're a winery, again, you're going to sell wines. If you're a wine store, you're going to sell wines. But what if you can conduct virtual wine tastings? In fact, I've done a couple virtual wine tastings. Sure, it's not the same as a real deal. Yeah. But it's great because during that virtual wine tasting, we see each other on video. The sommelier was talking about what kind of wine, the fruitiness or the balance. But it reminded me of that experience being close physically with colleagues. Or even if let's say you're a restaurant, host cooking shows, that gives you that feeling that, oh, you're in the kitchen, you're seeing, you're being able to engage with the ingredients. Above and beyond the normal transactional type of activity you would do digitally, right? So I soon after that, I just keep saying, we're not socially distant, we're virtually close.
Yeah, I love it. I the wine tasting idea is really cool. I guess where they ship you the samples and then it's like at an appointed time, you get on a Zoom call and
exactly. So you talk about being innovative. So we work with this winery out in Napa Valley. We're talking about Napa Valley. It's called the Madrigal Winery. And what they do is they can schedule for a team or a customer event where you tell them which package you want, how many people, and they'll ship them. It's airtight, it's chilled, and then you just pick a date, and then you jump on a Teams call or a Zoom call, and then not only will the sommelier, talk about the wine, he would even walk around the winery, and this is where we grow this kind of wine. It's just a cool experience. Especially when you had a couple of drinks already, it makes it much more fun.
That's really cool. And I think it'll create such opportunities too, as, things will get better. We will eventually be able to do more things in person. And the businesses that have been able to do that remotely, that's going to translate, I think, to success when we go back to some semblance of normal. All right, let's go check the questions. Let's see what's in there. We've got a few good ones. All right, here's a good one. You've talked a little bit about this, Dux, between kind of when to spend, free tools versus investments. So the question is, how do you feel about free tools and software when are they good to use and when is it time to invest?
That's a great question. So I love free stuff, especially as you're starting out, not necessarily from a monetarily perspective, because you don't know if it's going to work or not, right? So you really want to test first if it works or not. What I would recommend though, once you start using free tools, do your homework and check the legitimacy of some of these free tools. There's tons out there. So for example, tools like Facebook Live or Instagram, those are legitimate because, other than small organizations using it, big companies are using it. And then when you start paying for stuff, so just those two examples. So let's say you want to take your Instagram Live or Facebook Live to the next level. So what else can you do on Facebook? Because that's where people are. Start putting ads, for example, or maybe start. And sometimes when we think of paying, we're thinking of paying just for technology. Maybe you can hire an artist. So one of the things we're doing in the next few weeks, there's a big event, and we're hosting a virtual party. We're hiring a couple of artists because Las Vegas is not doing well. There's a lot of artists there that are talented. So we're hiring a couple of them. We're using a free streaming tool, but we're paying them so they can be part of this celebration. So think about these tools from a perspective of, are they legitimate? Who's using it? And then once you outgrow it, think about spending money, not necessarily getting better tools, but how can you provide better engagement with your customers? How you set yourself apart. If the free tool is doing it for you, then great, then use that money elsewhere.
Yeah, that makes sense. And kind of along those lines of how to be smart with your dollars, how to make good decisions with software. There's a question, this one's really good. Where do you think businesses go wrong when choosing a new technology? Are there any particular things to watch out for?
Absolutely. I think, and it's to nobody's fault. Sometimes businesses get carried away with a, bright, shiny object. So, for example, on the contrary, there's something I read recently about people jumping on too early to technology. That's one challenge. Oh, this is new. This is great. This is the latest and greatest. Be careful with that. Or second is just having that jumping on the bandwagon. Oh, because X business is using it, so should I. That may be true, but you have to step back and think about, okay, are you in the same type of situation? If it's working for them, then yeah, maybe it's going to work for you. But if not, just be careful on jumping on what the latest and greatest bandwagon is. That's just my caution.
Yeah, that's great. I think it makes sense. I think there's a ton of opportunity. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You've got to put in the work, the effort to understand. And then I think to your point, use the free stuff until there's something you've got working really well that warrants using something better. So yeah, I think that's great.
I want to double down on something you said, right? The technology is only one thing. The key, and just like anything, is consistency. And don't think that, I'm going to put this one video out there, or I'm going to put this one ad out there, or this one article, this one blog post, and suddenly the floodgates would open. I mean, if it does, great for you. But you got to be consistent. You got to have some kind of calendar, if you may, to say, okay, today I'm going to do this. I'm going to post this. Tomorrow we're going to do Facebook Live. Next week we're going to start doing delivery services. So gotta have those consistency in different types of offerings that will provide and support your customers through a longer period of time, not just 1 day, 2 day, 3 weeks, and expect something magical to happen right away.
That's a good point. And, I go back to the 6 points you mapped out. One of the things I think is really powerful about it is that that's sort of a full life cycle. You go back to those 6 steps from acquiring a customer to engaging with them, to the customer service, to repeat. And, I think a lot of times businesses, any size business thinks about the ROI of something. And you made a really key point that, all right, Facebook, we may do a Facebook Live or put out an Instagram post, and does it have immediate ROI? Well, that may be hard to say, but if you take that lens that you mapped out of the full end-to-end view, especially since a lot of these things like Instagram don't cost a lot of money, there's time and effort. But does that entire basket of activity drive more of the behaviors you want to see. Not necessarily, trying to measure ROI on an individual, like did that Facebook post or did that Instagram live generate meaningful revenue, but does it all collectively build more opportunities for me to engage with customers? So I think that's really cool.
Another example you mentioned, so this came to mind, is so Airbnb, for example. So Airbnb is a good example for two reasons. Airbnb itself, right now they're doing good because people still want to go vacation, but they rather stay in these rental properties. But when the pandemic started, Airbnb also introduced a new line of essentially a new line of business called Airbnb Experiences. It's all virtual. So now they've opened up this platform for people to go in there, and I don't want to say it's kind of training, but for people to have some new experience. One story I read was about these two bartenders in Spain. As you know, bars shut down. But what they did, they went to Airbnb Experiences, and they do just one thing. They teach people how to make sangria. And they schedule these, I don't know, they charge $10, $15 an hour.
Right.
But not only do they teach people how to make sangria, their whole hour is an experience because they put on this show. Like they're on full costume, they sing, they talk, and they teach people how to make sangria. And 2 months in, they're making bank. Like they're like, we're making more money than ever before. So again, they took advantage of this platform. Sure, they give Airbnb a cut, but in the end, it's just their creativity and also offering what they know, making sangria, to the general public.
Yeah, it's a great example. Dux, this has been a great conversation. I have one more question I want to put to you.
Sure.
But before I do that, how can people connect with you if they want to continue the conversation?
So again, Blake, it's a great privilege to be part of this show, and for everyone who wants to connect. And if you have questions, I invite you to connect with me pretty much on all social channels: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Just look me up, and I'll be more than happy to connect with you. And make sure you check out my podcast, Shift Happens, and learn from organizations on how they transformed during this time.
Awesome. All right, final question.
Yes.
One piece of advice, if you could give one piece of advice that every small business should do right now, what would it be?
Don't overthink it. Go all in, embrace tech. And as a part of that, if you don't know what to do, seek advice from experts like my good man here, Blake.
There we go. All right, awesome. Well, he is Dux Raymond Sy. I am Blake Clark, and this has been the Reimagining Your Business show from Software Advice. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dux.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.